Final hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes and Gord Miller in here. We got a big hour coming up, some NFL talk later in the hour with camps opening up league-wide and John Harbaugh speaking on Lamar Jackson criticism. Jordan Love looking for a big contract. It sounds as if he's going to get it, maybe the largest contract in NFL history. Who played basically a rookie last year, not based on tenure, but based on the starting position, and was unbelievable for the Packers. And as a Packer fan, it is remarkable that they're going to go Favre into Rodgers into Jordan Love. Like, they're really going to do it here.
And you remember how Rodgers' nose is out of joint when they drafted Jordan Love?
And I'm not a pat on my back kind of guy. I rarely do it, Gord. I was fighting the whole world. You know those memes where it's the one guy I get with the mob saying, I disagree? Everyone was going nuts. How could you do that? And I went on the air on this show and said, if they believe that guy can be the successor, it's a great pick. Now, it's a gamble. It takes massive courage to do it because they knew Rodgers was going to get bent out of shape, and he deserved to. I understood where Rodgers was coming from. Yeah. He's trying to win. He's winning MVPs. And they're picking his successor. They traded up in the first round to get Jordan Love.
So a guy from was it Utah State?
Yes, Utah. He went to I believe it was Utah State. That's a position you throw everything out if you feel like you got the right guy. You don't care about emotions. You don't care about cap history. You don't care about what pick it is. You don't care about what you traded for it. It's the one position in pro sports. If you don't have it, you're completely irrelevant. As a franchise, if you don't have a quarterback, you are not on the radar, and the Packers have known that forever because prior to Favre, it was a wasteland for a long, long time. Favre into Rodgers into Love, they made an unbelievable pick. I don't think that draft pick, and listen, it's still early. It's one great year. He's got to prove it. But if a decade from now, this guy's on pace for maybe a Hall of Fame career or close to it, that should go down as one of the greatest draft picks in pro sports history because of the context of the moment.
So who's the best quarterback in the NFL? Mahomes?
Mahomes, undoubtedly.
Who was the 10th overall pick, I think?
10th or 11th, yes.
Okay. Who's the next best quarterback?
Could be Joe Burrow, Josh Allen.
Lamar Jackson?
Could be Lamar.
Wasn't Lamar Jackson the last player?
Lamar went 32nd, I believe, yes.
Last player in the first round.
Baltimore, I think, traded back into the round again.
Allen was
7th.
Yeah.
Burrow went first. Yeah. That's probably your consensus.
What intrigues me is how often, like goaltenders, the best quarterback isn't the first quarterback pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like how often is, the best quarterback of a draft class the third or fourth quarterback pick?
All the time. I mean, Tom Brady obviously being the most extreme example.
Sixth round, right?
Sixth rounder. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Went last pick of the draft. And Brock Purdy's now a mainstay in San Francisco. Jordan Love was a late round pick.
And Brock Purdy could be in that conversation.
He's a really good player. Dak Prescott was a third round pick. Yeah, it's a tough position to master, man.
And it's the most important.
It's the most important. Everything starts there.
If you get that wrong,
you're toast. You just go around and around and around, and you just keep trying to find it. And Jordan Love last year, the way he played in the second half of the season, what he did to the Cowboys in Dallas, amazing.
Bill Poley and the old Colts GM and Bills
GM,
did a conversation with me one time at a sports management conference here, and we did the whole hour about drafting Peyton Manning, and he talked about the decision making and how divided they were, and how divided the football community was about Manning versus Leaf, and even when they took Manning, how a lot of people thought they were crazy. And if you remember, Manning had that terrible preseason game, and Ryan Leaf was great. And, the Colts have messed this up. And so I find that, those discussions, because there's so much, there are literally billions of dollars at stake.
Absolutely.
It is, in terms of franchise, you think of what those two guys, Favre and Rodgers, did for the Packers. Like what winning Super Bowls does for
changes everything. And Favre was obviously a draft pick of the Falcons, second round pick. Yeah. So they traded for him.
Right.
Franchise gives him away. They get him. They're like, all right, let's see what he's got. Rodgers drops famously in the draft. As you know, it was Alex Smith or Rodgers. Who are you taking?
Yeah.
They took Smith first overall. He drops all the way to 24. And Jordan Love, I think they took 26th or 27th. None of them were like first overall pick, phenom can't miss, which Manning was. Yes, there was debate, Manning or Leaf. In retrospect, it was kind of like Matthews or Line. It was always probably Peyton. And it worked out beautifully, clearly, for the Colts, and it worked out beautifully for the Leafs. But it's so different when a guy falls into your lap and turns into that.
Can you think about
Joe Montana was a third-round pick.
The NBA draft would be the same thing. You get the pick wrong. I mean, because one player can make such a difference. Like in the NHL, a player can make a difference for sure. Connor McDavid makes a difference.
Yeah,
but he only plays a third of the game.
Right. Well, if you get a goalie right, that changes everything because he's playing every single second.
How many goalies are
tough to make a call on that?
Like
it's just like quarterback.
Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, he couldn't get the net last year in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He was healthy, and they started Alex Lyon instead of him.
Yeah, tough sled, man. It's not easy to do. All right, something to chew on brought to you by Boston Pizza. And coming up, the Open Championship is officially a thing of the past. That means the major season is officially a thing of the past as well. It happens quickly.
Yeah.
4 majors, 4 different winners. Here's Shane Bacon from the Fried Egg Writer and the host of Get a Grip podcast. We met you, I think, a couple years ago. Was it at St. George's we had you, I think, Shane? Good to have you back, buddy. How you doing?
Yep. Doing good. Yeah. I got to sit with you guys. I think you guys were set up right by the rink.
That's right.
I have a depressing number for you guys if you want to hear it.
Okay.
263 days until the first round of the Masters.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
The PGA used to be when? Late August?
It should be.
Mm-hmm.
When was the PGA?
It used to be in August.
You get it in like a month.
Yeah.
I kind of like that they bookend this, though. I like, for me personally, the Masters, I love the Masters probably more than any other tournament. And the Open is so unique. I think they've set up this, well, I agree with you, Shane. Like, it feels like there's more summer here. There should be more significant tournaments. And you do have the President's Cup coming up this year, which is big up here. It's in Montreal in September. They've built up the FedEx Cup. They've done a pretty good job of that over the past 15, 20 years. But I like Masters first to set the scene, the Open Championship last. Do you like the order of things right now?
So I totally hear you. My only thing with the PGA was I feel like the PGA has lost a little of its identity because the PGA, I did a poll today on Twitter and like 1% of the people said the PGA Championship was their favorite major. I think the PGA's identity for a long time was maybe it's not the Masters or the Open or the U.S. Open, but it's the final one. You kind of had that as like your kind of your distinctive fit part when you mixed it in with some of the other majors. And I feel like they've kind of lost that. Now it's like, okay, it's the second major. It pops up. Then we get to the U.S. Open, then the Open, and then it's boom. It's, it's basically your like President's Cup, Ryder Cup year. We get 4 or 5 more weeks of good competitive golf. And then it's, then you get to some other sports. But for golf fans, it feels like, you're basically getting 3 or 4 months of nothing that impactful.
So looking back on the weekend, how would you describe the Schauffele win? Did he steal the tournament? Did he go and did someone throw it away? Like how would you look back on it? Because he was unbelievable yesterday. He played basically perfect golf, and he's a great champion. He won the PGA, as we know. How would you describe the tournament in terms of the viewpoint of Schauffele winning in the end?
I think he absolutely won it. I don't think anybody's walking away from that, championship thinking, man, I had a chance. Like, yeah, the guys had a chance, and it was bunched for 6 or 7 holes. But, he shoots the low round of the day. If anybody out there shoots 65, doesn't make a bogey. It was clinical. And, you hear so many people throw out the Tiger thing, and it's obviously for kind of golf insiders, it gets a bit frustrating, with what Scottie Scheffler's doing this year. You kind of go, yeah, but nobody was Tiger. That felt like nobody had a chance with 6 or 7 holes to go. And that, to me, was kind of reminded me of some of those Opens with Tiger where he wasn't going to miss fairways. He was hitting it forever. The irons seemed to be exactly where he wanted them, and he was burying the 15, 20-footers. And I don't know if you guys felt that, but, there's 5, 6 holes left, and you go, I don't think there's any chance he loses this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's different with him? Like, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that his dad is kind of stepped back a little bit from the coaching and sort of being ever present. I don't think he was at the PGA Championship. What else? What's different for Xander Schauffele that's allowed him to, I don't want to say break through, but to come back and dominate like this?
I don't think much. He's picked up some speed in the offseason. You mentioned the coaching change going to Chris Como, and that was like their main focus was, packing on a little bit of weight. I think he added about 10, 12 pounds of muscle and just trying to get the club head speed up a little bit so he could be, kind of equal to a Scottie Scheffler, not quite to, a Rory level or something like that, but, in the higher end of the guys that hit it far. But, when you look at his major resume, I mean, it is crazy how consistent it's been. I mean, he finished second in the Open in 2018. He finished second in the Masters in 2019. He finished third in the Masters in 21. He's finished in the top 10 of 7 of his 8 U.S. Opens. Like, I don't think much had to change for him finally to get one. I just think, when you get yourself in that situation enough times, you're inevitably going to make a couple of putts or somebody's going to struggle, and then all of a sudden you finally win your major.
Chatting with Shane Bacon, when you look at Scottie Scheffler, we were discussing him tee to green, that's always what it comes down to, seemingly, with Scheffler. Like when he loses, you talk about tee to green, because what does that mean? He couldn't putt, and he couldn't putt this week. Yet you look at, he's been on such a heater for 2 years. He's got 2 majors. They're both at Augusta. Like, does it feel like I'm trying to get to a point where I'm trying to describe him properly. Like, is he getting enough hype, too much hype? Does it mean anything that he's a tee to green wizard if he can't putt? Like, how do you put in the last, year and a half, 2 years of Scheffler, where it's been immaculate? He's won all these incredible tournaments, the Players, the Arnie Palmer, the Memorial. He's won all these elevated events. He's won a fortune. Yet he's only won majors at Augusta, and the putting seems to flare up as much as it does. What do you make of Scheffler and put his season into perspective so far?
Yeah, I do believe that Scottie Scheffler is separated himself from everybody else in golf, which is very hard to do right now with this crop, with Rory and Xander and Brooks and Bryson. I mean, so many of these guys are so talented, but Scottie is definitely better than them in terms of hitting the golf ball. And I think he's obviously presented that over the last 3 years on the PGA Tour with the wins and the consistency. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I need a little more out of him in the non-Masters majors. He gets close, and he finishes second and third and fifth and fourth, which is awesome. But I feel like for the level he's at, the putter just seems to pop up, and the putting woes seem to pop up at the biggest events. You think about the Opens over the summer. Those are the 2 worst putting performances of his season, right? At the most inopportune time. So, I obviously am very impressed with Scottie Scheffler in a lot of different ways, and he's had an incredible season. But, the window these pro golfers have compared to what it looked like 20 years ago, your dominance window is 5-6 years. You're kind of thinking about this. This is basically year 3 of whatever that window is going to be for Scottie Scheffler. And, he's won the Masters twice. That's incredible. But to be all-time great or to be the best of this era, he's going to have to start to pick off a couple of these other majors that aren't Masters, and he's going to need the putter to wake up at him if he's going to have a chance to do so.
Hey, when you think about great players who struggled to putt, and for me it would be Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia. Going back a little further, Bernard Longer had trouble for a long time. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, I can see a guy struggling with a driver. I can see a guy having trouble with his irons. It seems like putting for a professional would be the one thing that they could address, and yet, I mean, Scheffler was really off yesterday, don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and maybe he'll figure something out, or maybe he'll, a lot of these guys have a pride issue with the longer putter or something like that. Like maybe he'll eventually get to the point where he considers that. But, we saw him putt well this year. There's been some times where he's been great on the greens, and as we've seen statistically, if he finishes in about the top 20 in putting, he's going to win the golf tournament. So, you go through these phases where, he's talking about slow greens at the Open, and he didn't quite understand Piner screens. It didn't quite work out, but, we're also complaining about a guy that, finished 7th at the Open. So yeah. The ceiling is very, very high for Scottie Scheffler right now. I'll say this, and I don't know if you guys agree. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It feels like Scottie's now at the Rory level where finishing 5th is cool and it's good for your Wikipedia page, but we kind of want you to win. Is that? Do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Kind of level.
I think so because of what he's done everywhere else. Like you look at the the elevated events that have been established here for a couple of years, he's like lapping the field. He's winning everything. He's made so much money. Like Augusta's his home course, it almost feels like. He's like established that. And you got 3 other cracks at it. And he's in, who knows, if he doesn't get arrested, maybe he ends up winning there. I guess that's a possibility. He barely made the cut at Pinehurst. And he was in it yesterday, and it felt like that. Like he could have done what Schauffele did yesterday. He could have. He just couldn't putt.
He put so many balls. He put so much close.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's incredible.
He's made $28 million this year,
right,
on the PGA Tour. I mean, that is, you're talking career money level stuff for guys that played golf 15 years ago. It's incredible what he's able to do in these. But again, the biggest difference now with the majors than it's ever been. They've always been the most important golf tournaments, but now it's the only time you battle everybody, right? So you've got to beat Rory and Ludwig, but you also got to beat Brooks and Bryson and that crew. And so it's only making these golf tournaments more important. And it's, for Scottie Scheffler, he's going to show up at Oakmont next year, and, he'll probably have a really good ball striking week, and it'll come down to, are you going to finish dead last in putting of the players that made the cut, or are you going to make a few 10-footers to kind of keep those rounds going?
It's pretty incredible. Great stuff, Shane. Great catching up with you, man. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Anytime, fellas. Thanks.
There's Shane Bacon of the Fried Egg and host of the Get a Grip podcast.
John Daly, another guy who struggled to putt. His putter
won 2 majors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he did.
Get hot at the right time, and Scheffler he had a blade putter, then he went to a mallet, and he went red hot for a while. We'll see. Maybe he goes back to the blade. I don't know what he's going to do.
The biggest thing with them is putting the ball close for the most part. Like what we saw Schauffele do yesterday. Like he just kept putting the ball to
routine.
He just kept putting the ball to 15 feet, and so they make
they make 2 or 3 of those is all you really need.
They don't make as many putts outside 10 feet as you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, statistically,
but you give yourself that many 10 to 15 footers, and they're going to make.
Yeah, you're going to hit a number of them, but more importantly, you're not going to 3-putt anything.
Right.
Like you're just going to have low stress. And what Schauffele did yesterday, every tap in par was just that. It was like tap in par, and your stress never gets onto you.
So if you play in a scramble, right? If you play one of these Texas Scramble charity golf tournaments, who wins it? The teams, you only hear about 25-foot bombs. They put the ball to 10 feet or 15 feet, and they get 4 runs at it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the secret to those.
Statistically, you got a makeable chance there.
Give yourself a bunch of chances. The thing was, Scheffler had all these chances. And
couldn't get it done.
It was hard. It was
that story of him for a year and a half, which again, you're just asking so much out of him because the floor is so high.
Shane made the point. Like he's won $28 million.
All he does is win. Except when he loses, you know exactly what the problem was. All right, Robert Turbin coming up. Something to chew on. Brought to you by Boston Pizza. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Summer's short, so make sure you make the most of patio season at BP. Join us for a long lunch or a late night.
Making me hungry.
And see you for a pint on the patio soon. I know.
My first job was at Boston Pizza.
Well, you're a Western boy.
Dishwasher.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. Boston Pizza. It's a great Canadian establishment.
I still kid Jim Tree living on RCM that he owes me $140 in severance. I can get my last pay.
Oh, really? You didn't circle back and demand something?
No.
Yeah, Jim should hook you up. Get a sleeve of golf balls or something. I see him at golf tournaments all the time. Jim gets out there. He loves to play golf. So we've been asking online.
Yes. Okay.
In terms of water cooler material, or better yet, man, if you're at the patio, I guess, right? If you're hanging out on a patio, which this is the definition of patio weather. Which Toronto sports figure has sparked the most water cooler debates? I think you're going to say Mitch Marner, right? Like, because we established that kind of earlier.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. Okay.
I do think Shapiro and Atkins are taking a run at the Mitch Marner conversation.
What about Shanahan?
Shanahan somehow just gets out of everything. He doesn't come up. He came up a lot at the end of the season because he's been here for a decade now. Keith Pelly coming in, the uncertainty of whether or not, Pelly's going to work with Shanahan. Will he make changes? Does he feel he needs Shanahan? Right? We just saw what happened with Bill Manning and TFC and the Argos? Is Keith Pelley going to be more of a hands-on president and CEO where he doesn't need a president? But Shanahan comes up. I think it's Marner. I think it's Shapiro and Atkins. I think it's Bichette and Vlade. But I'd still answer it. It's Mitch. But I will say the Mitch Marner stuff is starting to die down because I think there's a recognition from Leaf fans. Stop asking because he's not getting traded out of nowhere. It's not going to happen.
Fast forward 5 months, and I would say Joe Wool will be in that conversation.
In a positive or negative standpoint?
Either way.
Whether or not he can carry the mail.
He's going to be a central figure.
Yep.
And once the season's a month or two old, I think Messiah Jury.
Yes. Because
if the Raptors aren't good, and look, I mean, we don't know, but I mean,
they're not going to be any good.
Okay,
I can tell you definitively.
I was trying to.
They are not going to be very good.
Again, I was trying to be the positive. Give them a benefit of the doubt.
I'm a realist. I think you just got to call it what it is.
You have pounded the Blue Jays nail. The Raptors nail.
Yes.
You want to take on the Leafs?
I think the Leafs will be a very good regular season team that will get to the playoffs, and they have to prove that there's something different there.
Okay.
I have full faith in them in the regular season.
Okay.
I think it'll be a fun year. Guys will put up points. They'll be a fun team to watch. But it will likely be the same story every single spring that it has been for 8 years.
So I think, so your guy's Marner too?
Well, I mean, I will say, I think it's shifting over the next week to Shapiro and Atkins.
Because of the deadline.
Yes, because the deadline's a week tomorrow. The Jays are playing. They keep digging themselves deeper, into the hole in terms of losing, in terms of injuries. I don't think the Bo and Vladdy conversation, I think it's compelling. I think it's out there. But I don't think it's going to change between now and next week. Neither guy's going to get traded at the trade deadline. That's not going to happen.
Hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine. I guess it's possible, but it's hard to imagine.
But if someone blew your doors off for Bichette.
Yeah, which again, I think this injury is probably going to scale that back because I just don't know if you're going to get a guy who's 100% at any point the rest of the year. I think that would scare you if you're a team.
Yeah.
What are you really going to get for Bichette the rest of this year? You probably know what you're going to get next year. It's a really good player. But I think it was Marner for about a month and a half to 2 months. For me, anecdotally, that's starting to die down a little bit, and it's more what the hell's going to happen here with the Blue Jays. And it's Atkins more than Shapiro, which gets back to your Shanahan conversation.
Yeah, because what's going to happen here is once the deadline comes and goes, it's going to fall off a cliff.
Yes.
Right?
There's not going to be anything else.
The Blue Jays aren't going to be newsworthy again until the offseason.
Right.
When you find out what's going on with the long-term extensions, what free agents are they signing. I mean, don't forget, everyone talks about not dumping, but moving these players whose contracts are up. Well, those are major league players. You can't just put anyone in a uniform, right? They have to be replaced.
Yes.
And not just for the rest of the season, but next season, these are good players that you have to replace.
Mm-hmm.
In a market that, to be fair, is not a prime destination right now.
Well, that certainly hurts as well in terms of your pitch. They Shapiro and Atkins to prospective free agents. Money sells more than anything. If you're willing to spend it.
Yeah, they gave Springer more than anyone else would.
Absolutely. I think they gave Hyunjin Ryu probably more. Maybe Gosman, although those worked out. Like Gosman was a really good pickup. They've done some very good things. Like this is not. They've been here. Shapiro and Atkins have been here for a long time. It's their 9th full season.
The problem
They've done some very good things.
But the problem is the guy they replaced has done some really good things.
Yes.
And did some really good things here.
Yes, he did.
And was very popular.
Very popular. And Canadian. And that's something you can't, like Shapiro and Atkins can't compete with that. They got hit as, here come the Cleveland guys pushing Beeston and Anthopoulos out.
Whether it's fair or not, it is.
Yes, exactly.
It exists. It is.
There's things that come and go that are steeped into the fan base based on, the fickle nature of any fan base, based on whether you're having success, it goes away and fades. And if you're not, it comes up again. And I think these two parties we're talking about, collectively Shapiro Atkins and even Mitch Marner, Marner's contract never comes up when he's got a 19-game point streak. When he goes pointless in game 5, 6, and 7 and they lose, it flares up again. Shapiro and Atkins being from Cleveland and taking over for Anthopoulos meant nothing when they were winning 91 games and going to the playoffs. And they were playing Seattle a year ago, and you're like, this is great. We love Shapiro and Atkins again. right? Get these guys Canadian passports. And then 2 years later, it falls off, and it's, look who they replaced, and they're Cleveland guys. Like, it's baked in. It's in there.
It is.
It only comes out
and it's not
when you lose.
And it's not silos with these teams. Like the Jays, the Leafs, the Raptors, they don't live in silos. It all bleeds together. Like the pessimism, the nothing ever changes, why are they still here? It bleeds into the other. It becomes part of the mindset in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the best, I think, finger on the pulse of what sports fans in Toronto think. I think you have a better feel for what sports fans in Toronto think than anyone.
Thank you.
I do think that. And I think that I can hear the frustration.
That's very frustrating.
I can hear the frustration of why don't things change more? How come Florida goes out and guts a roster that won the President's Trophy, and Toronto doesn't? How come other baseball teams go out with smaller payrolls and do better? Like, why is that? And I hear, like, I get
it's very frustrating. And if you're a Leaf fan, you have more ammo to be disappointed with than any other fan base I can think of. When you consider how long it's been since they've won anything, the amount of times the crazy thing about the Leafs' frustration is how acute it is.
Yes.
It's directly the playoffs. That's it.
It's not like they've missed the playoffs. It's not Buffalo.
Exactly.
Like
they're well run. They're likable. They present well. Like they have superstars. They have history. You got a massive fan base. There's great coverage. I may not love the coverage all the time, but they're well covered. Like there's really no gripes other than this very acute gripe that they can't
putt.
Win. Exactly.
Putt.
They can't putt. Exactly. That's what the Leafs are. The Leafs are Scottie Scheffler at the Open. Tee to green, look good, feel good, play good, off the tee, driver off the deck, whatever it is. You can look at so many different things, and it's like from 20 feet in, they can't get that part done.
But what's interesting is it's happened in different ways. It's not like the same thing's happening over and over again, and it's not to do. The 50-plus years has nothing to do with Matthews and Marner.
No, exactly.
Those guys. There's nothing. Like they have nothing to do with what happened in 2004.
No, but that's another. But again, I've always said this from a fan's perspective, because that comes up a lot of time. Well, you can't Brad Treliving. It's not about Brad. The Leaf fans didn't just become Leaf fans when Brad got hired. That's not fair to Leaf fans to say, "Hey, you got to reset here. Come on." No, you don't. It's not fair to ask a fan to reset because the team, and that's not what happened here, but there have been countless times where it screwed up so badly, a new guy had to go out and explain his new plan. And then if Leaf fans are frustrated by it, you're like, wow, look at you. You're so impatient. The guy just got on the job. What do you want out of him? Like Keith Pelly just kind of went through it. And Keith's answer was, hey, I just got here. Okay, I get it, Keith. And you're right. You just got here. But the Leaf fan who's been a fan for 60 years, they've been here for 60 years.
Your dad's been here the whole time.
The whole time. Been here the whole time.
Have your dad in the show.
Believe me, you want to talk about gripes, although he's way more optimistic than I am in a lot of different ways.
He's not as dark as you?
He can get dark, and he can get frustrated, and he can get angry. But he also, he sees it differently, and every fan does. Like it's a massive fan base, and to focus it on one specific viewpoint is probably not fair.
I would say the one counterproductive thing has been is that, and this happens in a lot of markets, is that the vitriol gets directed towards one person.
A lot of times that does happen.
People get singled out, and that's where it becomes dangerous that you run a player out of town because he basically, like Larry Murphy had to go.
Sure. And that's an extreme example.
Then he won 2 Stanley Cups in Detroit.
Right. That was extreme. That got so uncomfortable. He was getting booed uncomfortably.
Yeah.
Other guys have not. Like Mitch Marner, you hear you're running people out. Mitch Marner's not being run out of town.
No, I'll be. But the thing I want to see the most is opening night when he comes out.
I think he'll get a big cheer. I think
he does too.
I honestly, it's not. It's personal for some people. Some people don't like.
Well, it's
style.
also social media, right?
Social media is not.
It's not real life.
Really, real life.
Yeah.
It's because the story's perfect for Mitch. Local guy, grew up Leaf fan, drafted it. Be the king.
Been really good.
Been great.
Like
been great. It's just the philosophy, which isn't his fault, hasn't necessarily worked.
Yeah.
All right, NFL camp's opening up. I always love asking former players, like, what do you think players today are thinking when they walk in? It's like, you got to put the pads on, you got to get hit again. You just had 5 months off of not doing that. Here's a guy that would know that well. Former NFLer, SiriusXM NFL Radio host. Here's Robert Turbin. What's happening, Robert?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. You get deja vu, like watching camps open up, thinking about old coaches that would run you guys. I don't know if you were a two-a-day guy back in your day, but, just getting the pads back on, starting to get hit again, like the vibes of camps opening up. What do you think of, what do you remember most in terms of looking back on your playing days?
Well, the deja vu, it never gets old. It never stops. Every year, you get the same excitement, especially when you have passion for the game. I was a two-a-day guy, really, through, I would say, partially college, and then that's when the rules changed. And by the time I became a pro, those two-a-days were gone. I mean, we're still having two-a-days, but you can only do one of those practices in pads. But there is a level of excitement that never gets old to be able to put the pads on, be able to hit some guys, and, get those competitive juices going, man. So, on this side of it, I get equally as excited, just because I've got guys who I'm really good friends with, colleagues, players that I played with who are still playing, guys like Bobby Wagner and others. I get excited to see them, get back into action. And then, teams that I support, obviously the Seahawks being one of those teams, getting excited for them to get going with their new coaching staff. So the deja vu, it never gets old, man. It happens every year.
So, Robert, you're not that old, but when you look back at two-a-days in pads, so now there's no two-a-days. I think it's only 16 padded practices in training camp now. When you look back at what you went through, early on, you think, how did we ever do that?
Yeah, there's a part of me that does think about that, but then, there's another side, to it as well, that, the players who played before us in the pros who had their two-a-days in pads. You hear some stories of guys who even played in the 70s and 80s who had three-a-days in pads. And yeah, I mean, and still were able to have, 8 to 10 to 12 or even more year careers under their belt. But, it is a new age, and it's about trying to, take care of guys' bodies long term as far as, when their playing days are over. And so I wasn't mad at the fact that they took away two-a-day padded practices. I wasn't mad at that.
No, I can imagine. We're chatting with Robert Turbin. So John Harbaugh shows up today, and he's very defensive, talking about, his quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and the criticisms that he has heard about Lamar. I'm not sure exactly which criticisms he's heard, but he heard something that he didn't like. And he went on to say that he believes Lamar Jackson will turn out to be the greatest quarterback in NFL history. What do you make of those comments? What do you make of the defense of Lamar to some sort of criticism that apparently is out there that Harbaugh doesn't like?
Well, if you're the head coach of your team and Lamar Jackson is your quarterback, you would think that you're going to defend your quarterback, all the way to the finish line, even if you're not telling the entire truth. And maybe that's where John Harbaugh is right now. I think he understands that there are a couple guys in the league who are pretty good. Okay, you got a Patrick Mahomes who's in the league. You got a Joe Burrow in the league. You got a guy named Tom Brady and Peyton Manning who are now retired. And those are two of the GOATs, of the game. And so, those are pretty strong words to say about your quarterback. But that is his quarterback. And so that's what you're going to expect. I think a lot of the criticism, comes from the simple fact that Lamar Jackson hasn't been successful in the postseason. and we talk about other quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, like Dak Prescott, who have, similar endings to their season. I think the difference is, Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP. So maybe we don't get on him as much as we should. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't been able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs and, quite frankly, hasn't been able to get over the hump when they've had really, really good regular season and really, really good teams. And so, and guess what? Some of that falls on John Harbaugh being the head coach. So maybe he's a little bit defensive about that as well.
Yeah.
But greatest quarterback of all time, anything can happen. I'm not saying it can't. But what I am saying is that's his quarterback, and that's the reason why he's saying that.
So, speaking of quarterbacks, Jordan Love is not in training camp for Green Bay, but it sounds like he's close to a contract extension with the Packers that'll put him in the $50 million a year club. And I'm curious what you think about a player who was very good last year, obviously, but whose resume at the NFL level is still pretty thin, getting that kind of commitment from the Packers.
Well, let's remember how, the payment structure is in the NFL, especially as it pertains to quarterbacks, right? Sometimes you're getting paid based off the results you've already given in the league. And I think a part of that is, goes to Jordan Love, but a lot of it, too, is you're getting paid off the potential of what we think you can be or what we think you can end up being. And so I think it's a fair assessment to put Jordan Love around that $50 to $55 million range, similar to some of the other quarterbacks that are in the NFL right now. Now, he's at training camp. He's there. He's just not practicing because, obviously the deal isn't done. They don't want to risk any silly injuries like that. But the fact of the matter is they had a great second half of the season last year. They went on the road, beat Dallas in the playoffs, and, when you look at it, you say, man, the ceiling is very high for, this player, and that's why he's going to get the type of money he's going to get.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense because if he has another season just like he did last year, and I think he'll be better with a young receiving core, the youngest in the NFL, probably improving. They got Josh Jacobs now as they got a backfield that I think is going to continue to be impactful. Aaron Jones leaves, but Jones was hurt a lot last year till the end of the year and into the playoffs. Like if he puts up numbers like he did this year, again, let alone improves on those, they're going to have to pay him even more. Like you might as well pay him.
Yeah, think about this. You've got Trevor Lawrence. He's getting paid $50+ million a year. And so is the kid with the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert, and they haven't done anything. Mm-hmm. Justin Herbert is .500 in his career as a starting quarterback, and so when you think about it like that, you say, well, if those guys are deserving of $50+ million a year, so is Jordan Love.
Well, we'll see, man. We'll see. That's a lot of cash.
That's a lot of chips on the table.
A lot of chips on the table. And, there's a lot of things going on, obviously, throughout the NFL as camps open. We're chatting with Robert Turbin. I'm curious what you think of the Aaron Rodgers scenario going into camp here. If he stays healthy this year, how good does he have to be, in your opinion, for the Jets to be a playoff team and furthermore, maybe to be an actual Super Bowl contending team?
He's got to be the Aaron Rodgers that we've come to know throughout his entire career. 4-time MVP player, a Super Bowl champion, the guy who's led his team to the playoffs almost every year. He's got to be that guy. He's got to lead the troops. He's got to conduct the orchestra. He's got to be accurate. He's got to make great decisions. He's got to be the one to put his team in position to be able to win football games, each and every Sunday, especially on offense, putting them in situations where they can be successful playing and play out. And he talked about that. He talked about, developing the ability after all of these years, going up to the line of scrimmage and essentially calling the play from there or even making a change, an audible, things of that nature. But that's the Aaron Rodgers that we're going to have to be able to see. I think that there still needs to be a certain level of escapability. He's always shown that over the course of his career. Hopefully his Achilles is healthy enough where he can demonstrate a little bit of that still this season, because the Jets are going to need a little bit of that. Not a lot. That's not his game anyway. But he has always been mobile, and it's been fruitful for him, throughout his career. So he's got to be the Aaron Rodgers we've always known, and I think he will be. I think the Jets are going to be a dangerous team to deal with this year. They got a couple other things they got to do. Hassan Reddick may not be at training camp tomorrow because of his contract situation. He's had double-digit sacks the last 3 seasons. You got to find a way to get him under contract to add to an already very good defense. We'll see how this offensive line holds up, but you got to like the additions that they made there. Everywhere else, skill position-wise, they're pretty down-packed. And so I look at the Jets and I look at Aaron Rodgers, as a team to be fearful of in the AFC.
Great catching up with you, Robert. It's good to have the NFL back in camp. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All right, guys. Peace.
Robert Turbin, former NFL running back, SiriusXM NFL Radio host. So there you go. NFL back in action. We got the CFL cooking. Man, football is it's rolling right now.
I'm wondering, the PGA Championship moved, and I wonder if part of that was to get out of the way.
Wouldn't be surprising.
The NFL has turned into a juggernaut.
So massive, man.
Did you see the graphic this year? That 98 of the top 100 shows on TV in the U.S. last year were NFL games.
NFL.
The Academy Awards, and I think the Grammys.
Yeah. And those, I'll bet you, will be out at some point.
It's just...
They'll move out.
It's bigger than ever. It's just...
Yeah, it's just a massive... It's an empire. It's a sports empire. And they're coming for everything. They're coming for Christmas Day. They've already taken that. Yeah. NBA move.
And they're going to move into the so-called no man's land of February.
Yes, right? They're going to push back. They're going to add another game. They're going to add another bye week.
They're going to take you into late February now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the best. Like the NFL.
Now,
I can't get enough.
The only trick with that is, your Packers make the NFC Championship game. Playing it in February is a different animal than...
It is. Yeah, but December, January, February, it's all kind of the same up there.
Well, not quite.
No, why do you say that? It's worse?
It's worse. February's the coldest month.
Yeah. I think what they're going to do within the next 10 or 20 years is I think they'll get to the conference games will be neutral site. Really? I think they're going to create 3 Super Bowls.
Like soccer with the...
Yeah. I think it'll be, you have the Super Bowl in LA, and then the NFC Championship game will be in Detroit, and the AFC will be in Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, I could totally see them doing that. Building it all up, neutral site, get people to come in. They're every 5 to 10 year installment, it gets bigger and bolder and longer. So
cities will bid on the conference game.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. All right, Gord Miller's with us. We got that Ray story. We'll come back with a Ray story.
The Ray cell phone in Russia story.
Okay, that's coming up next. All right, Gord, give us a good story.
All right.
The Ray Ferraro story.
The Ray Ferraro cell phone in Russia story. So we go to the World Juniors, the 2013 World Juniors, so it's Christmas 2012. Mm-hmm. Ray loses his luggage. His luggage gets lost on the way there. So he's already in a bad mood. Now, in addition to being his driver, travel agent, accountant, I'm also his IT department. So Christmas morning, 2012, Ray walks into my hotel room in Ufa, Russia, throws his phone down on the desk, says, "It doesn't work. My phone's broken." So I pick it up and your data's off. So I go to turn it on. It won't turn on. Mm-hmm. So I call the help desk back in Toronto. It's Christmas Eve. Mr. Ferraro's phone's on. 1 sec.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a data anomaly yesterday, so it automatically shuts down. I said, "Ray, did you download a large file or?" No. Oh, I streamed Landon's American Hockey League game yesterday.
While flying over there.
No. In the hotel, I said, "You streamed an American Hockey League game for 3 hours on roaming in Russia. That's what you did." Yeah. So he's like, I think we found the problem.
Right.
So now, the next day, we're going to the pizza place in Ufa. It's not a pizza's place. It's a pizza place with a one-slot oven. Mm-hmm. So we're walking back, and Cammie, his wife, FaceTimes him. Now, Ray does not like to be interrupted when he's talking to Cammie. And so he's holding his phone up. So he's like this. He's talking to Cammie, and he's like this. And I'm like, "Ray." He's like, "Ray." He's pointing his camera at a military base. And two Russian soldiers with machine guns are walking towards him.
Who's this Canadian spy?
Well, he's standing there, literally facing it, holding his phone like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Ray." And so what? I said,
Yeah. Might want to put it down, dude.
gotta go.
Wow.
And we scurried away.
I love it.
That was the Ray in Russia. Like
The idea of, do you know how much that would have cost the company to stream a 3-hour hockey game?
on roaming in Russia.
Exactly. On Russia. Like, I don't even know. What do they have over there? I have no idea what their data system is.
They wound up waiving the bill.
Oh, nice of them.
But it was like, seriously? Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was a good idea.
Oh, that's probably $15,000
I have no idea.
in roaming fees.
But he honestly walked in, my phone's broken.
Broken.
Yeah, because
Did you do
that's
anything yesterday? Yeah, watch Landon play.
that's what I do is I fix your phone,
Yeah.
make sure you fly to the right city, drive you everywhere because you can't find anything.
I love the idea of a Canadian with his phone up at
At a military base.
a military
At a
base.
Russian military base.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because they take that stuff really lightly.
Probably, I mean, I'm not sure you get away with that at an American base, like any base. They'd
Yeah.
be like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because we don't know that guy and something's shady. No, it's just Ray
You know what?
FaceTiming
Just Ray.
Cammy.
And you know what? That's what you love about it.
Yeah, you gotta love him.
honestly,
Somehow he survived
I
this
had
long.
more more fun traveling with him
He's a beauty, man.
all over
He's
the world.
one of a kind. It's great to have him on today.
Yeah.
Great to have him on. Shane came on. Steve Phillips came on. It's great to see you, Gord. Robert Turbin came on.
Yeah.
Everyone behind the scenes, great job as always. We appreciate that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. Radio, TV, podcast, web. We appreciate that. You ready for this, Gord?
Yeah.
I know you got it in you. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 o'clock. We'll chat then.